Hey, hope you're doing well today. Just wanted to talk to you about this BP42 Ryobi Backpack Blower. I've had this for a number of years now, and I just recently rebuilt it for the third or fourth time, and I just wanted to tell you guys about how to start it if you're having some trouble, some things to look for, and how to adjust it, and other things like that. So I actually just recently serviced this unit. I put in a brand new fuel line. I ordered a new carburetor on eBay kit. It came with new fuel line. It came with a new fuel filter that sits down in the bottom there. It came with the carburetor. Came with a new fuel bulb. It came with a new air filter, which I put in here, which I actually hadn't replaced. It looked really bad. And then it also came with the little tool. Excuse me. It came with the little tool here that you'll need to adjust to the carburetor that's down in there. Now you may not need to adjust it. It's likely that it's already adjusted correctly. What I found was the problem is when you push this primer bulb, okay, you want to look at the fuel that's coming back. Looks like my fuel line's a little bit moved since I reassembled it, but you should be able to see this I apologize, this return fuel line right here. There we go. So that's the one that comes out of the top of the carburetor. Let's see if we can get some more light going there. Separate this a little bit. There we go. So you can see there's the two adjustment screws, and then right there is the fuel line on the top of the screen in the center right there. And we're looking just straight down into it. So that is the return fuel line where the fuel is coming out of the carburetor, okay, and then going to the fuel bulb. So I'm going to push the fuel bulb over here and watch. I'm going to do it real slow, and you see there's a couple bubbles coming through. So you want to make sure that I just primed this so there's not that many bubbles. So if you've got bubbles coming out of there, that indicates there's air getting into your fuel line, fuel system somewhere. Possibly internally the carburetor has failed. So that's what happened here to me recently, is there were a bunch of bubbles coming out of that fuel line. And then you also want to make sure that the other fuel line, so I did reuse the return hose here, but the new hose, where the gas is coming, you want to make sure there's no bubbles in here. That could indicate maybe there's a hole in the fuel line, possibly in the tank or out here. You want to see that if you look on the front of it, if you look down here on the bottom, that's where the fuel's coming into the carburetor. So you can look and make sure you don't want any bubbles coming in there, because that would indicate air, and air is not fuel. So we got to make sure we've got fuel, and then make sure your bulb is good and don't have any cracks or holes in it, and make sure we've got no bubbles in the fuel line where it's coming back and going in here. So usually, just like it says, you can push about 10 times. That's usually about how many to get it out and get the bubbles out on a cold start. When you rotate this to start, there's a small mechanism on the bottom of the carburetor. It locks the throttle to, I'd say, maybe about 15% or something, kind of like if you went and did that. And then when you pull the trigger, well, when it's down, you'll hear that click, and that's that mechanism releasing. So when you put it in start, it locks the carburetor in, it turns the throttle up just a little bit for you, as well as closing that choke plate. And then when you click it back to run, the mechanism on the bottom continues to hold that throttle open, so that when you pull the cord, it's giving just a little bit of throttle. Sometimes you might find you need some more throttle. So if you flooded the engine and maybe it smells like fuel, or if you pull the cord and then you go smell and it smells like fuel, make sure this is on run. Okay, you've primed it too much, or maybe you're having some issues. Make sure this is on run. Pull this all the way down. Okay, and that's going to let all air in and make sure we're not pulling any fuel. And then when you pull the handle here, you're going to be burning out any of that excess fuel. So do that a couple times. If you've been trying to start it for a while, you may find it just suddenly starts. But make sure that's back. I've seen sometimes this button will get stuck down, and that'll prevent it from starting. So make sure this button is functional and pressed up. You want to make sure this is in the up position and that the trigger is functional. If the trigger goes flat, that means that it's disconnected. Right in there, there's that little wire. So I'll reach over and pull the trigger here. Hang on, let me try and get the camera. So as you pull the trigger, you're rotating and pulling on that little plate, on that cable right there, and that's straight down in there on the carburetor. So some other things, I have noticed the muffler has a rattle. It's like that kind of metallic rattle sound is in the muffler. I could replace it. It's $50-something. I have had to order a replacement for the baffle or the accordion thing there. But other than that, it's been a pretty good machine. We did have an issue with the rope had frayed away and was breaking, because I think I might have been pulling at strange angles at some times just out of frustration when I wasn't quite as familiar with the unit. So up here there's a spiral spring. Well, first you take off, if you need to disassemble it, you'll use a Torx head, and we've got a screw here and here. They're all the same size and shape and fastener as this one. And then you'll need some kind of maybe a flexible extension I've used, and then there's two down here in the back. And what I would do is I would leave these two in when I would remove it, okay, and I'd hold down right here, and I'd have a helper pull more on this side. If you pull this side, you'll stress the fuel lines. So if they pull this side away, then you can kind of come in here and guide down. If you're doing it by yourself, you can also just kind of put it up and jam a block of wood. But I didn't find that to be quite as effective, and it was a lot easier with a helper. So try and get a helper here if you do need to take this apart. Anyway, so once you're in here, it does come off just as one unit, so you can come in and clean and inspect everything. If you need to service this pull handle, which I did, the rope goes in and it coils around just a plastic wheel, and that wheel is what engages the metal tabs that actually turn the engine. So if you need to, you take this off, and the plastic wheel is just attached to the plastic housing, and all the metal stuff stays down on the engine. So you take it off, and it's got the rope and just the little wheel, and there's a Torx screw, the same size fastener as these, holding that wheel on. And if you do need to, for some reason, take that off, it's kind of dangerous. There's a huge giant spring inside of it, and then there's a plate. The way that mine came out, it all uncoiled, so I had to take it all out, and it was a really hard thing to get it aligned. There's a pin at the top that you have to align the outside of the spring, and I mean that spring was it was making coils that were a foot or more around, and I mean that's all coiled up in here. So having to do all that, I did re-grease it and get it all coiled back. It really hurt my hands to do it, but we got it all done. And then we got the rope. We installed the new rope first. I coiled the rope around, and I taped the rope to the wheel so that I could then do all of the coiling of the spring. And then once the spring was fully coiled, and the way that I did it is there's a plate. If you'll take this apart, you'll see there's a flat plate and it has a little notch cut out of it. So the way that I did it is I would wind one revolution around and I'd push the spring inwards, and then I'd lock it in that notch, and then I'd kind of do the same thing, and I'd work around. I'd push the spring in a little bit and force more and more and more in, and come, and it would push it down in that notch, and it would kind of lock it and hold it there, and you could just keep force this way with your finger instead of having to try and hold all of the torque of the spring while you were winding it. So once that plate was on there and I had all the spring torqued into that plate, that's where you align that last or first, whichever part you want to call it, where it hooks on here. You've got to get that aligned and push that down in through there and push the wheel on. And then at that point, if you screw it down really hard, it'll kind of lock the wheel in place. And then you can undo the rope a little bit. Actually, before you undo the rope though, leave the rope tight on there. You want to turn that wheel pretty much all the way until it stops, because you want the most spring on there, because I messed up and one time I didn't do that and the rope would hang down a little bit, and then it actually caught on one of those things and I thought everything was over, but it was able to recover, and it was working from there. So anyways, I had to cut the rope and come in from the side here, and I had to actually cut the rope. I guess we can't even see it because of the lighting and everything, the way it aligns. Anyways, I had to come in through the side right here and access that starter coil. Yeah, there's not really any way to see it. You can kind of see it rotating right there. But so anyways, I got distracted. So once you get that hooked on there, you get it tightened down. You can take out the take the tape off and get your string fed through here. And you want to make sure that's tightened all the way. And then when you're at the end of your string, pull it out and tie your knot through your handle. And then you can let go or undo the screw a little bit so that it can rotate on that spring. Make sure you put some grease in there so that it's going to help to lubricate that spring where it slides on the plate. But yeah, once you have all that done, that should restore the springiness of this handle, and hopefully you never have that problem, because that was the worst thing I've ever had to deal with in my life, almost, but not really. But it was really frustrating. If I could do it again, I would recommend not to purchase this product. I've had to do a lot of maintenance with it, and it's while it's worked well, the repair on it and the design is very hard to work on. So it takes a lot of patience. You have to have the Torx tool. You have to have the long extension to reach down in here. You have to have a lot of patience if you're going to work on this recoil. They do sell this assembly as $45. If you don't want to go through all of what I did, you can spend some money. They'll send you the new handle. They'll send you the top plate. It doesn't come with the sticker, but it'll, you can start your thing. You don't have to deal with what I did there. The carb kit, I'll put a link. I got on eBay. I'll put a link to this. The carb kit, again, it came with the carburetor down in there. New fuel line. It was only enough to do. And actually, you know what? It wasn't even the right fuel line. I had to use another fuel line. Anyways, it came with the bulb. It did come with fuel line. It was the wrong one, but it did come with the right air filter, which was nice. Now, all the screws on this, they are the same as this one. Except right behind here, there's a spark arrestor plate, and there's a little bit smaller size Torx head. So I couldn't tell you exactly which one which one that is, but yep. So yeah, here, let's see if it'll start for me. Here we go, Ryobi Backpack Blower, fully repaired, ready to go. If you have any other questions, or you've had any other issues, or recommendations on what to do. Oh, so here, I guess one last thing. If you're messing with the carburetor, most important, right? So, the inner screw, the one, let's see here, I'll use our tool. So this screw is for the idle adjustment. So if you're having trouble to start it, you'll need to adjust this one. And then if you're having trouble when you pull the trigger all the way full, you'll need to adjust this one here. So you want to get this one adjusted to where when it's started and running, that it's got the highest idle. So it's idling at the highest speed, it sounds the best. And then similarly with this one, except while you have wide open throttle and the trigger is fully depressed, you can also just kind of pull that little gray lever down, and that'll let you sit and adjust it if you're only here by yourself. So that's how you adjust the carburetor. You may find, so the replacement one, I guess another note, replacement one came with the circle, which has, focus, it has the circle inside of it. Now the one that the blower came with was a Pacman screwdriver. Now the replacement carburetor did come with the Pacman screwdriver, but it has the circle adjustment knobs on it. So both the fuel line and the adjustment screwdriver that came with the replacement carburetor, which I only paid, I think, $16 for on eBay. So not a bad deal, all things considered. I used the fuel bulb, it worked out great. I used the carburetor, it's working great. So I used the air filter, and I mean, for $16, you can't go wrong. Everything is working really well. You saw starts on the first pull. So yeah, if anyone has any comments, questions, feel free to subscribe or whatever it is. Make videos about all kinds of different things all the time. So hey, hope y'all are doing well, and have a great rest of the day today. Thank you much for watching. Bye bye for now.